Today's episode is brought to you by Beam. Transform your sleep with Beam's Dream. It's the secret behind 15 million nights of improved sleep. You fall asleep faster, you're going to stay asleep longer, and when you wake up refreshed. Get up to 40% off at shopbeam.com/PDB and use the code PDB. It's Tuesday, 14 May. Welcome to the President's Daily Brief. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage. Let's get briefed. Today, we begin with a revealing look into Gaza's internal governance. According to a new exposé by the New York Times, Hamas operates a police state there, complete with a secret police force and an extensive network of government informants surveilling Gaza residents and suppressing any signs of dissent or actions against Hamas. Later in the show, the corruption trial of Senator Robert Menendez began in New Jersey on Monday. We'll examine the case against the New Jersey senator, who's accused of using his position as the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to fill his pockets and benefit foreign governments. And I mean literally fill his pockets. Law enforcement reportedly found fat stacks stuffed in his suit jacket pockets in his closet during a search of his home. Plus, more arrests in Canada related to the 2023 assassination of a Sikh separatist in British Columbia, as Indian officials respond to accusations that they were behind the murder. And lastly, in today's back of the brief, a potential Chinese Communist Party influence operation in the Big Apple. Well, that doesn't sound like something the Chinese Communist Party would get up to. The CCP engaged in an influence operation in the U.S.? I am as shocked as Captain Louis Renault discovering gambling at Rick's Cafe. But first, today's PDB Spotlight. Since the events of October 7th and in the days that followed, Hamas has firmly reestablished its reputation as a ruthless terror organization, even if they were able to turn the narrative quickly in their favor among anti-Semite and anti-Israel audiences. But Hamas isn't simply a terrorist organization supported and funded, resourced, and trained by the Iranian regime. Since 2007, of course, Hamas has been the governing body or organization in Gaza. In this capacity, Hamas is responsible, supposedly, for running public services, education, healthcare, and maintaining internal security for the good of the residents of Gaza. That last one, maintaining internal security, well, that's what we're going to take a look at today. A recent investigation by the New York Times is offering rare insight into the oppression faced by Palestinians in Gaza under Hamas's rule, shedding light on the extensive surveillance and control exerted over the lives of Palestinians by their governing authority. According to an extensive investigation and review of documents by the New York Times, Hamas has run Gaza like a Soviet-style police state, complete with its own version of the KGB and an extensive network of informants. This surveillance function is primarily carried out by Gaza's General Security Service, or the GSS. This is the organization responsible for collecting data on Gaza's citizens, from young students and journalists to those who express any form of dissent against the government. This surveillance includes tracking people's movements and relationships, with reports being built based on everyday activities deemed suspicious or nonconformist. Now, if this sounds like how the Iranian regime keeps tabs on its population through elements of the IRGC, well, the proxy apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Central to the operation of the GSS is a network of informants spread out throughout Gaza. These individuals often report on their own neighbors, turning in those who participate in protests or who criticize Hamas privately or publicly. This has created an atmosphere of distrust and fear where personal privacy is significantly compromised. According to the documents reviewed by the Times, this network of informants is not just a tool for maintaining political power, but also a method for enforcing Gaza's strict conservative social order, not too dissimilar from Iran's famous morality police. The reach of the GSS extends into the digital world, where agents work to remove criticism from social media and launch attacks against those who oppose them online. Journalists in particular find themselves under constant watch and frequently face harassment for reporting and social media activity. Now, the consequences for Gazans who dare to dissent can be pretty severe. In addition to harassment by security forces, including home visits, oh, that sounds pleasant, and threats, surveillance reports have led to prolonged detention without clear charges or due process. Shocking that Hamas would not engage in due process. Detention can include questioning and potentially harsh treatment. Other targets of the GSS are publicly discredited. This includes the spreading of false accusations or compromising information to undermine their reputations. All right, coming up next, we'll look into the allegations against Senator Robert Menendez as his trial kicks off in New Jersey. And also ahead, new developments from Canada following the 2023 assassination of a Sikh separatist in British Columbia, including more arrests and responses from Indian officials to accusations implicating them in the murder. More on those stories when we come back. Welcome back. Embattled New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez was in court on Monday for the beginning of what promises to be a weeks-long trial into allegations that the senator and his wife Nadine engaged in a bribery scheme involving foreign governments. Menendez, who has rejected multiple calls from his Democrat colleagues to resign over the scandal, faces 16 criminal charges, including conspiracy to commit bribery and conspiracy to obstruct justice, all while aiding foreign governments, that's according to a CNN report. The case involves allegations of pushing for arms sales to a foreign government, using his position to pressure state and federal prosecutors to look the other way regarding his close associates, and accepting substantial bribes, including gold bars, large cash payments, and the keys to a brand-new Mercedes-Benz convertible. The bribes were allegedly facilitated by several local businessmen linked to Menendez in order to get his help obtaining lucrative contracts with the Egyptian and Qatari officials. Menendez has consistently denied any wrongdoing and told CNN, quote, "I am looking forward to proving my innocence," end quote. And he managed to say that with a straight face. Menendez's foreign entanglements have led to multiple indictments against the senator, his wife, and their close associates over the past 7 months. The initial indictment last September accused Menendez of accepting bribes while unlawfully aiding the Egyptian government, including passing them sensitive U.S. government information. A subsequent superseding indictment filed against Menendez at the beginning of the year revealed his alleged corruption involving Middle Eastern governments ran far deeper than just Egypt. In that filing, federal prosecutors allege Menendez and his associates solicited bribes from the government of Qatar in exchange for Menendez's political support in Congress. That scheme allegedly involved Menendez helping New Jersey businessman Fred Dabes secure a multi-million-dollar investment from a fund controlled by a Qatari sheikh in exchange for numerous bribes. Those bribes included cash payments, the now infamous gold bars found during a search of the senator's home in June 2022, and expensive watches. It appears that in exchange, Menendez made numerous public statements supporting Qatar and helped push a Senate resolution supportive of Qatar through the Foreign Relations Committee that he chaired at the time. In a sign that the walls may be closing in around Menendez, one of the businessmen involved in the scheme, Jose Uribe, pleaded guilty in early March to 7 counts, including conspiracy to commit bribery. He is reportedly cooperating fully with prosecutors in their investigation, and that could be considered an ominous sign for the senator. His other business associates, Dabes and Wael Hanna, have both pleaded not guilty and are being tried alongside the senator. Now, in a surprising twist, it appears Menendez may be getting ready to use that time-honored tactic of throwing his own wife under the bus. His wife, Nadine, well, she had her trial delayed over medical issues. But in a recent court filing, attorneys for Menendez said, quote, "Senator Menendez intends to present a defense arguing that, in part, he lacked the requisite knowledge of much of the conduct and statements of his wife, Nadine, and thus did not agree to join any of the charged conspiracies," end quote. Aha. It's the old throw your spouse under the bus trick. It was all Nadine's fault, I tell you. I'm as honest as the day is long. Those gold bars, expensive watches, the Mercedes, the fat stacks in my pocket, it's all a setup, Your Honor. Okay, enough of that. I want to turn our attention to India's alleged foreign assassination program. as police in Canada arrest a fourth Indian national linked to the murder of a Sikh activist leader last year. The Indian government is long suspected of running a covert overseas murder program targeting individuals that they feel are hostile towards India, particularly dissident leaders of the Sikh community. One of the highest-profile incidents thought to be tied to the program was the assassination of prominent Sikh separatist leader Hardeep Nijjar. Nijjar, an Indian-born Canadian citizen, was gunned down outside a Sikh temple in British Columbia in June of 2023. As we reported last week, Canadian officials arrested 3 Indian men in Alberta on Thursday who were allegedly part of the hit squad that killed Nijjar. Authorities in Canada announced Sunday that they had arrested a 4th member of the assassination squad, a 22-year-old Indian national who now faces charges of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. It appears all the men involved in the killing are Indian nationals who've been living in Canada for the last 3 to 5 years. The incident caused a major diplomatic rift between Canada and India after the attack was officially linked to India by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in September. Indian officials who had publicly accused Nijjar of links to terrorism angrily denied any involvement in his death. They responded by expelling 41 of Canada's 62 diplomats working in India. Following the recent arrests, a spokesman for India's External Affairs Ministry again denied his country's involvement and claimed Canada has provided no evidence to the Indian government proving a link to the murder. The spokesman said, quote, "Let me first make it clear that no specific or relevant evidence or information has been shared by the Canadian authorities till date. You will therefore," he said, "understand our view that the matter is being prejudged," end quote. Still, Canada is far from the only country where India is suspected of carrying out targeted assassinations. In November, the U.S. foiled a conspiracy to assassinate a Sikh separatist in New York City and issued a stern warning at the time to the Indian government over their alleged involvement. As we've previously discussed on the PDB, a bombshell report by The Guardian in April found that India's intelligence agency has carried out at least 20 targeted killings in Pakistan since 2020. The report alleges that India uses sleeper cells, primarily based in the United Arab Emirates, to carry out these killings. The assassination program was reportedly built out in the wake of a deadly 2019 suicide bombing in an Indian-administered city in the disputed Kashmir region. The revelation has caused already strained relations between India and Pakistan to further deteriorate. And as a reminder, India considers many members of the Sikh movement to be terrorists and has criticized nations with significant Sikh populations like Canada and the UK for their perceived leniency towards these groups. Coming up in the back of the brief, new documents reveal the potential reach and influence of the Chinese Communist Party in New York City, as opponents of the regime were excluded from a recent parade celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage. I'll be right back. In today's back of the brief, a report in Newsweek is providing some insight into Chinese Communist Party influence in New York City, suggesting that enemies of Beijing are being excluded from Asian American cultural events. Now, if you're not aware, New York City has one of the largest Asian American populations of any major city in the United States, and more ethnic Chinese people than any individual city outside of Asia. As you can imagine, that gives the Asian American community a lot of influence in local politics, and it gives China a lot of incentive to exert influence in the city and to work hard to influence public perception and dialogue related to the Chinese regime. This particular story centers around the city's Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month parade, which was started back in 2022. The parade was supposed to be open to any person or organization that is of Asian American descent. Well, hold on there. Not you, Taiwan or Tibet or Hong Kong. Some groups immediately noticed that they were having a tough time, either not being invited to participate or having trouble applying. As it turns out, an investigation by Newsweek shows that the parade was founded by a man named Robin Mui, CEO of the Chinese-language newspaper Tsingtao US. I know, you're thinking, what? There's still newspapers out there? Anyway, Mui was ordered by the Department of Justice to register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act in 2021. A document from one of the groups organizing the parade read, quote, "For security and safety reasons, we invite and welcome non-controversial political or religious organizations to join us," end quote. So, what makes an organization too controversial for the parade? Well, the groups that were allegedly targeted for exclusion were Tibetan groups, Taiwanese, and Hong Kongers. Of course, these groups all have one thing in common, and that would be opposition to the Chinese Communist Party. Now, to make matters worse, this parade was founded with the blessing of Mayor Eric Adams. Robin Mui told Newsweek that he'd been pushing for it for years, but it wasn't approved until the Adams administration. Now, this isn't the first time that Mayor Adams has come under scrutiny for apparent influence from Chinese communists. In the past, Adams, along with other New York politicians, have been called out for receiving thousands of dollars in campaign donations from communist-linked individuals. And that, my friends, is the President's Daily Brief for Tuesday, 14 May. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And of course, to listen to the show ad-free, become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker. I'll be back later today with the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool.